Welcome to this webinar event, which is jointly organized by Center for Commercial and Law Studies, Queen Mary University of London, in particular by Alumni Association from two different countries, Caribbean and Indonesia. The title of today's webinar is World Children's Day Edition, the role of child online protection in shaping better future generations in the digital era, Fourth Industrial Revolution. Today, we are going to talk about one of the most important issues in modern world because our children are our future. My name is Svetlana Chasnaya, and I will be the host of today's webinar event. So, this webinar will consist of two big sessions. The first session will be started by me as a host and later opened by the moderator, Dr. Susan Kammer-Ishik, followed by the keynote speech from Professor Susi Dwigharijanti for 10 minutes approximately, and then the presentation from two speakers. Each of them will have 15-20 minutes to do the presentations. After two speakers are finished with their presentations, we will have a Q&A session. However, questions can be raised throughout the whole session in the chat before the Q&A session begins. Then the second session will be started after Q&A of the first session is finished, and I transfer the role from moderator from Dr. Susan Kammer-Ishik to Ms. Phyllis Bial. The second session will be conducted in a similar format, where the two speakers will do their presentations first, and then followed by the Q&A session before the whole session is concluded by Ms. Phyllis Bial, and later by me as a host. But before I hand to the moderator on behalf of the organizer and steering committee, I would like to express my gratitude by saying thank you to all of the people who contributed the success of this event, where I will start with the distinguished guest speaker like Professor Susi Dwigharijanti from Faculty of Law, UNPAD, Mr. Ahed Attar from Leyday, Ms. Nazira Ali from the Supreme Court of Trinidad Tobago, Alema Sharuna from Initiative Self-Care, and Mr. Firdoz from the University of Barcelona for sharing their knowledge, view, and experience to all of us in this event. We also would like to say thank you to Dr. Susan Kammer-Ishik from the Istanbul Medeniyet University and Ms. Phyllis Bial from the SRP as the moderators of this event, Ms. Svetlana Chasnaya from Lex LLC as the host of this event, Ms. Catherine Taylor-Bennett and Ms. Rachel O. from the CCLS Alumni and Development Team in London for technical and promotional assistance of this event. We also would like to say thank you very much to my colleagues at CCLS Committee Indonesia chapters, such as Mr. Firdoz, the initiator and the lead project of this event, and also for the eFlyer and Doom background. Jennifer Karina and Made Siti Lokatazari for promotional assistance, as well as the rest of the members of CCLS Committee Indonesia chapters and CCLS Indonesia community. We also would like to thank you very much to my colleagues from CCLS Caribbean chapter, in particular Dr. Natalie Kothesi and Ms. Nazira Ali, for approving the collaboration idea and speaker for this event, promotional assistance and presence during this event. Thank you very much. We also would like to thank you very much to Professor Susi Dwigharijanti from UNPAD and Dr. Diagen Vulan Christianti as the Executive Director of the Human Rights Community at the Faculty of Law of UNPAD for promoting and encouraging their law students, in particular those who took Human Rights Law module. Last but not least, we also appreciate all of the participants who kindly enough to allocate time to be here. Thank you very much for your attendance. So without further ado, I will continue by introducing of moderator for the first session of this event, Dr. Susan Kammer-Ishik. So Susan Kammer-Ishik is an alumna of Queen Mary University of London, LLM, in 2013, and of School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London FDPS program in 2012. Also, she was an alumni ambassador of Turkey between 2013 and 2022. She is currently an associate professor at Istanbul Medeniyet University Law Faculty, Department of Constitutional Law. In 2019, she was a visiting researcher at University of Paris, Pantheon-Sorbonne, and then, at the same year, she completed her PhD at Marmara University, Istanbul, Department of Public Law. Her published PhD thesis is a constitutional law overview of European data protection law. Her main research area are constitutional law, human rights law, and their intersection with digitalization, privacy, and data protection as a human right. So from now on until the Q&A of the first session, our moderator will lead the organization of this event. So Susan, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Svetlana, for this sweet introductory entrance. And also, I would like to thank all the speakers and keynote speakers and all the actually students that now they watching us online. And it is really good opportunity for me to reach all of you. As we all know, every generation has challenges. Since the digital era began, when the internet became a vital part of our world, our lives, it has become a double-edged sword for the civilization. Undoubtedly, one of the challenges for the younger generation is how the internet will positively impact them and unlock their true potential, resulting in a better generation than the previous one. The question is how the internet can help the younger generations outperform previous generations and thrive in modern life. Great technology comes with great responsibility and ethic, morality in the end, actually. Thus, on the occasion, the Center for Commercial Law Studies, Queen Mary, University of London, Alumni Chapter of Caribbean and Indonesia decided to organize this webinar in honor of World Children's Rights Day. And today we are here to discuss intersections and divisions between children's rights and the technology. Today's webinar headline is, as Svetlana said, World Children's Day edition, the role of child online protection in shaping better future generations in the digital era, fourth industrial revolution. As part of our contribution to society, we would like to educate and to raise awareness people, as well as give the recommendation to law and policymakers on what should be improved in solving these issues. As mentioned, this event is conducted in 2 sessions, and I'm the moderator for the first session. After the keynote speech, 2 precious speakers speak, and the second session will start. Without further ado, we will begin with the first session with the keynote speech from Professor Susi V. Harijanti. And let me introduce you by reading her short bio. Professor Susi V. Harijanti is a professor of constitutional law at the Faculty of Law, Universitas Padjadjaran, Indonesia, since 2018. She obtained her PhD degree from the University of Melbourne in 2011. Her academic interests include comparative constitutional law, the law of the Constitution, human rights law, and citizenship and migration law. Since 2013, she has been an associate of the Center for Indonesian Law, Islam and Society at the University of Melbourne. She is also an associate of the International Academy of Comparative Law. In 2023, she was appointed as a member of the Law Reform Acceleration Team established by the Coordinating Minister of Political, Legal and Security Affairs. In the same year, she became a panelist in the first presidential debate organized by the Electoral Commission. She was a director of the Human Rights Center at the Faculty of Law, University Padjadjaran from 2011-2021. Currently, she is the head of the Constitutional Law Department, Faculty of Law, University Padjadjaran. The floor is yours, Professor Harijanti. You have 10 minutes, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zaisan, for introducing me. And good evening, everyone from Bandung, Indonesia. Bandung is the capital city of West Java province and has been well known as the host of the Asian African Conference that conducting in 1955. Today, we are gathering to celebrate World Children's Day, and it is my great honor to participate in this celebration through the inspiring webinar discussing child online protection from the different aspects, including human rights, the enforcement of children's rights through judicial procedure, the involvement of multi-stakeholders in providing the safe internet for children, and the role of psychology to prevent and overcome the negative impacts of the internet on children. Distinguished speakers and participants, we are now live in the digital era through which internet has been able to make radical transformation in a way that the digital and physical worlds are impossible to separate. The digital age has brought both opportunities and challenges for the realization of children's rights across the globe. And according to digitalregulation.org, with 96% of young people online in 2019 and 1 in 3 children being connected, the internet has become an integral part of children's lives, presenting many possibilities for children and young people to communicate, learn, socialize, and play, and also exposing children to new ideas and more diverse sources of information, opening opportunity for political and civic participation for children to be creative, and also contribute to a better society. In addition, at the global level, 1 in 3 internet users is a child under 18 years of age. In practice, children and young people are often at the forefront of adopting and adapting to the new connected technologies, providing opportunities and benefits they bring. However, they are also being exposed to a range of content, contact, conduct, and contract risk online, which may bring potential harms online and offline. From the point of view of human rights, children and young people are classified as vulnerable group and thus need stronger protection, not only from their family, but also more importantly, from states where they live. Distinguished speakers and participants, it is widely known that the main international human rights instrument is the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, with its main fundamental principles stated in Article 3, saying that the best interest of the child should always be a primary consideration when decisions affecting children are made. This UN Convention has several optional protocols, namely the optional protocol on the sale of children, child prostitution, and child pornography, and the optional protocol on the involvement of children in armed conflict set out additional rights for children. The optional protocol on communication procedure allows children to make complaints about child rights violation. And Indonesia is a party to the CRC through Presidential Decree number 36 of 1990. In line with the development on digital technology, the Committee on the Rights of the Child has already introduced the General Comment number 25, 2021, on children's rights in relation to the digital environment. And the drafting process of General Comment number 25 were participatory in nature, as it involved various actors and a series of consultation with states, civil society organizations, and most importantly, an international consultation with 709 children and young people living in a wide variety of circumstances in 27 countries on 6 continents. 6 of these countries are in Africa: Ethiopia, Egypt, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, and Tanzania. I quote Johannes Enyo Ayale et al. 2024. Several state parties, civil society organizations, and international organizations, as I mentioned before, have submitted their comments, such as the Sweden Ombudsman for Children, the European Network of Ombudspersons for Children, and so on. Interestingly, the European Network of Ombudspersons for Children has proposed the inclusion of the right to be heard, dealing with respecting the view of the child. And this, again, demonstrates the fact that multi-stakeholders have actively involved in the promotion, protection, and fulfillment of children's rights in the digital environment. The General Comments number 25 explicitly states the 4 principles, including non-discrimination, best interest of the child, right to life, survival and development, and respect for the view of the child. And more importantly, the General Comment includes general measures for implementation that shall be utilized by state parties, namely legislative, administrative, and other measures, including precautionary measures. Further, it addresses a number of aspects that should be considered, including comprehensive policy and strategy, coordination, budget allocation, data collection and research, independent monitoring, dissemination of information, awareness raising and training, cooperation with civil society, children's rights and business sector, commercial advertising and marketing, access to justice and remedies, civil rights and freedom, violence against children, family environment and alternative care, children with disabilities, health and welfare, education, leisure and cultural activities, spatial protection measures such as protection from economic, sexual and other forms of exploitation, as well as administration of child justice, and finally, international and regional cooperation. It is also interesting to note that there are a number of international initiatives have tried to offer guidelines for policymakers dealing with child online protection, such as the ITU Guidelines 2021. These guidelines have been developed by a working group of more than 50 organization experts in the field of ICTs and child rights and consist in a comprehensive set of recommendations for all relevant stakeholders on how to contribute to the development of a safe and empowering online environment for children and young people. Now, it is also important to mention the development of human rights law instrument at the national level. This development indeed a reflection and implementation of the 3 state obligations dealing with human rights, namely obligation to respect, to protect, and to fulfill, And it is now common
Dr.
to
Harijan,
find that most
almost the end of your part.
has included human rights norms, including the rights of the child. And in the case of Indonesia, for example, Article 28B, paragraph 2 of the 1945 Constitution says that each child has the right to viable life, growth, and development, and to protection from violence and discrimination. Not only Constitution, legislation, regulation, and policies have been also adopted. However, the above development does not automatically ensure better protection for child online has been realized. Several challenges and obstacles made the realization may have been far to be achieved. Political, economic, social, and cultural factors can contribute to these difficulties. For example, a country which puts its priority on the economic and business development without using human rights-based approach will significantly affect the promotion, protection, and fulfillment of human rights, including children's rights. And now I must stop to give opportunity to several prominent speakers of this webinar, presenting their valuable thought, opinion, and experiences in the field of children's rights, promotion, protection, and fulfillment. I believe all of us share the same opinion that it is time now to give more serious attention and priority for protecting child online, resulting of the increased number of serious violence against children through the use of internet. And comprehensive approaches should be made to overcome these problems. Thank you, and may have a productive webinar discussion.
Thank you, Professor Harijanti, for your well-structured and informative explanations. And after this fruitful opening speech, I would like to introduce our first speaker. And I would like to read Mr. Ahed Attar's short bio. Ahed Attar is an alumni of CCLS, Queen Mary University of London, with an LLM in Human Rights Law, graduating in 2013. And also he is one of my precious classmates. Since completion of his LLM, he has been working in litigation in the UK, gaining experience in handling claims in niche specialism, industrial deafness, and PPI, plebin, as well as group claims. These areas of law are regulated by case law and statute. He has built up more than 10 years of litigation experience through his career and has qualified as a solicitor at the start of 2020. He is keen on gaining exposure to more areas of law and seeks to keep appraised of developments in human rights law in the UK and also globally. The first topic will be about the role of the international human rights law in the implementation of child online protection in the UK. You may begin ahead. We are all ears. You have 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And Assalamu alaikum, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I'll just begin my presentation with international human rights in the implementation of child online protection in the UK. Through my discussion today, this sets out the agenda. We'll firstly start with the exploration of the definition of human rights, move on to the legislative framework internationally, such as the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, the optional protocols, the general comment, all of this legislative framework, before moving on to the Online Safety Bill and the Online Safety Act, which were enacted legislation in the UK to protect children's digital rights and protect children online. And then lastly, we'll talk about the implications of the Online Safety Act, what it means, and what the shortcomings and limitations are of the Act. So I'll move on to the first slide, which details the definition of human rights. Human rights are rights inherent to all beings, regardless of their race, their gender, their sexuality, their nationality, their religion, and people have the right to have freedom of expression, the right to work, education, regardless of their personal characteristics, and this includes children. I'll now look at the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child, which was a piece of legislation enacted in 1989, and this infographic details all the different articles within the legislation. There were 196 countries which were signatories to the United Nations Convention, and the countries participated in the legislation as well and looked to enact the legislation on a national level for their individual countries. What we'll specifically discuss today is Article 12, which details the rights of the child for participation, because the child has the right to form their own opinions on the world, express their own views, and participate in their own development, whilst also, as Article 16 states, whilst also ensuring that there will be no arbitrary or unlawful interference in the child's privacy or family correspondence, because obviously there's a bit of tension there in that the child wants to have the autonomy to develop their own opinions, express themselves, whilst also the parent has the right to sort of adjudicate on children's matters, especially with young children, and what's in the best interests of the child. A lot of the times that falls with the parent's scope of influence. But as the child grows up, they will want to participate more and form their own opinions and grow up and have more and more autonomy. Article 34 also details that state parties are to undertake to protect the child from sexual exploitation and sexual abuse. And that's an onus on states, countries such as the UK to protect children from sexual exploitation. However, as we said, the United Nations Convention is a piece of legislation from 1989, and that's more than 30 years ago. That's before I was born as well. So a lot of the legislation there and the articles don't cover everything that applies to today's world, and especially because the internet has become increasingly accessible and is used more and more by many people. And so there needed to be the introduction of the optional protocols, which is what we'll look at next. So there are 3 optional protocols. The UK is signatory to 2 of those optional protocols. The other optional protocol, which we won't go into today, is in relation to children and their rights with armed conflicts. But what we will look at today is the optional protocol on the sale of children, child prostitution, and child pornography. And the preamble of this optional protocol details that there's an increasing risk of international traffic, and specifically girl children are at greater risk of sexual exploitation. And there's a lot more accessibility and availability of child pornography, unfortunately. And so the optional protocol looks to detail what states are required to do to protect children while the children are using the internet and having access to the internet for their own development and for their own education. And the next piece of article that we'll look at is the general comment on number 25 on children's rights in the digital environment. While preparing this, children from 27 countries were interviewed, and they said that they wanted a much safer, more rights respecting, and more inclusive environment and digital environment, and the use of the internet should be more accessible and much safer as well. And the general comment details that states are to implement the convention, and it gives guidance on legislative and policy and other measures it puts a positive obligation on the states to implement legislation to protect children's rights and to protect them from the harms that we've discussed earlier. Whilst also the general comment details that the social media actors and social media companies should fulfill their responsibility to respect children's rights. That's a negative obligation on social media companies not to violate and breach children's rights. We'll now move on to looking at the UN Special Rapporteur report on the right to privacy. The Special Rapporteur specifically looked at privacy breaches. He prepared the report of artificial intelligence and privacy and children's privacy. The citation is there as well, in case anybody wants to have a look at that. And in the report, the aspects that are detailed there were looked at, specifically the interests of tension. As I discussed earlier, there is a tension between children wanting to have more autonomy, wanting to develop their own opinions, express themselves, whilst also parents having the right, especially with young children, to adjudicating their matters for their best interests. And so there is that tension, and the tension shifts more from the parents' rights towards the children's rights as children grow older and have more need for development and developing their own views and their own life views and their own views on the world. The next aspect of the report looked at was personal identity. A lot of the days nowadays with the internet, children are their digital imprint is created when they're first born through ultrasound images that are shared online, through then images on as they're toddlers that are shared on social media, as they're young children starting school, all of that. And as the children grow older, they'll want to have more control over their identity, their digital imprint, and how it is going to be used on the internet. They will also, as they age, want to look at want to develop their own opinions on their sexuality, their gender, their bodily integrity, and autonomy as to what they decide to do with their bodies and how they wish to live their lives. And then the report also looked at the recognition of identity, education and schooling, and how the internet can correlate with the education and schooling, and the age appropriateness as well. And the Global Assembly Privacy Resolution on Children's Digital Rights looked at and stated that privacy impact assessments needed to be conducted, children's rights impact assessments needed to be conducted. The codes and terms of conditions needed to be implemented by the states, and the states are required to implement legislation and codes in order to protect children when they're using the internet and to protect them from the harms that we've discussed previously. The Lanzarote Convention on the Council of European Convention Against Sexual Exploitation. This arose from the increased use of information technology and information technology, communication technologies, and it arose from a realization that sexual exploitation and sexual abuse had increased. So this convention looks to criminalize sexual offenses against children, and it requires states to do that as well, member states to do that. All of this led to the Online Safety Bill in the UK, which the UK said that they aim to make the UK the safest place in the world to be online. They understood that there were risks of cyberbullying, pornography, exploitation, promotion of violence and racism as online, and the Online Safety Bill looked to address and apply to user-to-user services and websites such as social media websites, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter. It also looked to apply to search services such as Google and other online service providers such as that publish pornographic content, and it implements, and the online safety bill looks to put obligations on each of those user-to-user websites and the such to protect children while the children are using their services and prevent them from being exposed to cyberbullying, pornography, exploitation, and promotion of violence and racism as well. So the Online Safety Act applies to all businesses, regardless of size, and social media, it applies to the social media platforms. It puts an obligation on them to remove illegal content and ensures that children do not have access to harmful or age-inappropriate content that includes pornographic content, content that promotes or encourages suicide, self-harm, eating disorders, and impose age restrictions and checks the age of the users where the content could harm them as well. If these legislation is not followed by the websites and by the businesses that the Online Safety Act applies to, there will be hefty fines, and there could be criminal liability as well for the CEOs of the different companies if they fail to adhere to the Online Safety Act. And risk assessments need to be conducted by the providers as well. In relation to the Online Safety Act, the Office of Communications has been tasked with creating codes of practice that need to be implemented to ensure that the social media companies can follow those codes and comply with their obligations under the Act. And so Ofcom have released guidance on how they will look to publish codes that will seek to help the social media companies in implementing their obligations. And the first phase will be looking at illegal harms, and then the second phase, which will be released in January 2025, will look to the child safety, pornography, and the protection of women and girls. And lastly, they'll be imposed on additional requirements that fall onto these categorized services as well, and additional duties that need to be followed by the social media companies and the user websites and search services as well. The shortcomings of the Online Safety Act are have also been considered. In the summer, the riots in the UK drew to attention the fact that misinformation could run rampant online and could create a lot of disharmony. And the London Mayor Sadiq Khan said that the bill was not fit for purpose at that time, because while the bill was going through the Parliament, the provision of legal but harmful content, the requirement to remove legal but harmful content was deleted from the Act after consultation, because it was felt that it would breach the freedom of expression and people's rights to express themselves. And there is also a fear that the Online Safety Act does create censorship and government intrusion with the provisions that have been implemented within the Act and have been followed through Parliament. Specifically, Section 116 of the Act says that, sorry, yeah, Section 116 of the Act requires social media companies to it requires social media companies to break end-to-end encryption, to look through private and public channels and find illegal content. The Law Commission's recommendations regarding addressing fake news were also not followed, which
you have just 1 more minutes.
Sorry. So the Law Commission's recommendations were not followed in that the fake news did run rampant, and the legal harmful provision was deleted after consultations. So in conclusion, I think the Online Safety Act does address a lot of things, because it does require social media companies to remove illegal content, does require them to implement age verification processes to ensure that when users are using websites and internet devices that publish pornographic content, that their age has to be verified and they have to confirm their age. However, the Act does not address all of the ills because of the removal of the legal but harmful provision, and also it does not prevent misinformation from being spread. And so there is a lot of scope as well in relation to the codes of practice that Ofcom will release, and whether they will actually ensure that children can use the internet safely, or whether there is leeway for the social media companies through the codes to sort of take the hefty fines for breach on the chin, and not follow the procedures and follow the Act as required. So there's a lot of things that need to be looked at, and the codes need to be considered once they come into effect, whether they do actually protect children online and protect them from cyberbullying, illegal content. And so that's what needs to be seen, how the Act will be implemented moving forward. And that's my discussion today. So
Thanks a lot, Ahed, for this enlightening speech. I appreciate you taking the time to share with us. For the question and answer session, we need to be waiting for the second speaker. After that, you can also write down the questions here in the message box. Now we continue with the second speaker, Ms. Nazira Ali, especially her expertise focusing on children in accordance with the meaning of the day. So I would like to introduce her with pride. Ms. Nazira Ali is an accomplished legal expert and alumni of Queen Mary University of London, where she earned her LLM in 2013. Since 2015, she has dedicated her career to child protection in her native Trinidad Tobago, working with a specialized agency focused on the care and advocacy for vulnerable children, particularly those at risk of abuse or neglect. Currently serving as a Master of the High Court in Children Court, Judiciary of Trinidad Tobago, which was established in 2018. Nazira manages cases involving minors in conflict with the law and those requiring court intervention for care and protection. The court emphasizes a rehabilitative approach, prioritizing social interventions to strengthen families and amplify the voices of children. Through her work, Nazira champions the rights of children, ensuring they can fully enjoy their childhood while receiving the support they need. You have the stage, Nazira. You have 15 minutes, all ears. The stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cezanne, for that really great introduction. And thank you to the speakers that went before me for their very interesting presentations. Assalamu alaikum to my friends in Indonesia. Good morning to us in the Caribbean and this part of the world, and good afternoon to those in the UK and the rest of the world who are at that time. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen. So as Cezanne introduced me, I will be speaking about this area of child online protection in Trinidad and Tobago, the law here. I'll touch a bit on some of my neighboring Caribbean territories and a bit on international law, but the focus will be on what happens in Trinidad and Tobago and drawing from my experiences at the children court in Trinidad and Tobago. So as the agenda shows, I'll talk a bit about what happens, the international conventions, which we're a party, and then our laws will go straight into. There are quite a few laws that, try to touch on child online protection, the Trafficking in Persons Act, the Children Act, the Offences Against the Persons Act, the Domestic Violence Act, the Computers Misuse Act, and we're looking forward as to what lays ahead in our legal landscape. There's a Cybercrime Bill 2017, what happens in other Caribbean territories, what happens in the courts, and some conclusion. All right, so child online protection, as the speakers before me has indicated, with the digital area, everything is now about social media, and there's a heavy focus on social media. Children have become a vulnerable category, and I would just like to draw with the advent of COVID and online schooling. I think locally, I can speak from my experience, that's where children became, in that vulnerable category of persons who, while they're doing online schooling, ads would come up and suddenly they're being groomed. Suddenly, they'll meet persons online, and then it would lead to meeting persons outside, and then abuse happens and so on. So it's a very relevant area, and children, as a result, have found themselves to be exposed or risk, and it's because they're very unsupervised due to use of the internet. So these risks include online grooming, cyberbullying and harassment, sextortion and child pornography, social engineering and intrusion of privacy. It's not an exhaustive list, but I just want to focus on the main areas for this presentation. So we go to the international conventions. Of course, we are a party to the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. I can't speak on the whole convention, but I want to focus on some areas that are most relevant to this presentation. So Articles 34 and 36. 34, the protection of a child from all forms of sexual exploitation and sexual abuse, including exploitative use of children in prostitution or in pornographic performances and materials. And Article 36, protecting the child against all other forms of exploitation prejudicial to any aspect of the child's welfare. All right, it's not on the slide, but just draw reference to the speakers that went before me. The best interest principle has also found its way from the UN Convention, has found its way into our legislation on the Children Act. So that's the principle under which, offers the most guidance. Also making reference to the general comment on children's rights in relation to digital environment. I want to zero in on these three paragraphs, paragraphs 24. So the policies relating to children's rights, specifically addressing the digital environments and how regulation, codes, designs, and policies, deal with this issue, and how, what can be implemented, and of course needs regular evaluation and updating. And this will guarantee children the opportunity to benefit from engaging with and ensuring a safe access to the digital environment. Paragraph 25 talks about how the online protection should be integrated with national child protection policies to protect children from risks, cyber aggression, and other exploitation online. All right, and also to investigate crimes and remedy and provide support to those who are victims. And finally, paragraph 112, children should be protected from all forms of exploitation, prejudicial, any aspects of their welfare in relation to the digital environment. Right. So we'd like to start speaking about the law in Trinidad. So the law I start with is the Trafficking in Persons Act. And that's a reference, chapter 1210. I think it's the strongest area to start with. So this act attempts to codify the UN Convention against transnational organized crime, which Trinidad and Tobago ratified in 2007, and also in particular reference to the protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children. Section 18 of the Act provides that a person who recruits, transfers, or receives a child into or within Trinidad and Tobago, harbors a child in the country, or recruits, transport, or transfers a child from Trinidad and Tobago to another jurisdiction for the purpose of exploitation, commits the offense of trafficking and is liable on conviction. All right, the fine is quite heavy, not less than 1 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars, and imprisonment for not less than 20 years. Now, I know the topic is on child online protection, but this act, exploitation, can be done both online and offline. So that online could be a conduit for an offline offense. And we look at the definition of exploitation in this regard, which includes child pornography, meaning a photograph, film, video, or the visual representation, whether or not made by electronic, mechanical, artistic, or other methods that shows images of a child or parts of a child's body for sexual purpose. All right, so next I'll go to the Children Act. It's our all-encompassing act to deal with child protection. It has provided some level of protection for a child online. It's in keeping with the UN Convention. A child is defined as a person who's on the age of 18 years. The Children Act, while it's a bit revolutionary, it has introduced the new offense of sexual grooming for the first time. Well, it didn't quite create child pornography, but it expanded the definition that existed on the Trafficking in Persons Act. So I'll next talk about these offenses. So sexual grooming, what does that mean? It means gaining the trust of a child or a person who takes care of the child for the purpose of sexual activity with the child. There's a criteria. The accused must have met or attempted to meet with the child at least 2 occasions prior for the purpose of sexual grooming, and it obviously including via the internet. The sanctions, heavier sanctions than what was before: summary conviction, fine of $50,000 or imprisonment 10 years, conviction and indictment, a fine of $100,000 or imprisonment for 20 years. Child pornography. So the definition is much wider. Section 40, anyone who intentionally makes, permits, publishes, distributes, transmits, shows, publishes, accesses, possesses, or purchases child pornography will be held liable for this offense, including anyone who knowingly distributes it, and if they knowingly transmit it by any means, including electronically, post or fax to another person. So the sanctions of child pornography, also heavy sanctions. Just going to move over to this other part of the other facets of the offense: intentionally exposing a child or causes a child to be exposed to pornography, also liable. Or someone who causes, incites, controls, or arranges or facilitates a child's involvement in pornography is also liable. So you also have the person in the background will also be liable, and not the person actually committing the act. And some points to note about child pornography. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we follow the common law, and what we say is the possession of child pornography is a strict liability offense. So I know some of you all will be from civil law background. What does this mean? It means once you're found in possession of child pornography, it matters not whether you knew or whether somebody planted it on you, you will be found liable of this offense. Also, a Trinidadian, a national of Trinidad, would be subject to prosecution, even if they did the act found to commit the act outside of the country. So there's a territorial scope. All right, so I'll move on to another act, the Offenses Against the Persons Act. It creates the offense of harassment, which includes alarming a person or causing them distress. It must be preceded by a course of conduct carried out on these 2 occasions, including making contact with a person, whether verbally or via computer, post, or in any other way. And if you will notice, the sanctions are more menial than the sanctions I mentioned in newer acts. All right, so only $2,000 and 6 months imprisonment. So this act, was a lot longer, has been around a lot longer than the newer revolutionary acts. So, so the next act I want to talk about is Domestic Violence Act. So it's not a 2020 act, it actually was amended in 2020, but it's almost like a whole new act. What amounts to domestic violence, it's so comprehensive, but for the purpose of this presentation, I want to zero in on it. Now includes emotional or psychological abuse. Just to draw on from the definition, any act, omission, or pattern of behavior of any kind which will undermine the emotional or mental well-being of a person who is in a domestic relationship with the respondent, including making any unwelcome, intimidatory contact with the person by any means, whether verbally or electronic means, or by letter or telephone, or disseminating intimate images of the applicant to a child electronically or by any other means. All right. Well, just before I move on, while the Domestic Violence Act, to an extent, can protect from a child in the online world, it's limited in its application, but I'll talk about that later on. So the next act I'll talk about, the Computer Misuse Act, has been around for a bit. It does touch on some protection, but it doesn't quite give a special protection for children. So I'll just glance over some of the sections that are relevant. So it prohibits any unauthorized access to any program or data held in that program with the intent of committing a cybersecurity offense. All right. As you'll see when I speak later on, we don't quite have a cybersecurity offense. We have a cybercrime bill that's on the table, but it's not yet part of our law. And as you see, sanctions are a lot less because it's an older act. Also, there's a great limitation. You can only prosecute 1 year from the date of the commission of offense. So if a year has passed, there's no recourse. And there's also an extraterritorial scope. Any person could be prosecuted regardless of nationality once it is shown that the computer data, program, or damage occurred within the country. So as I was saying, what lies ahead for our laws in Trinidad and Tobago? There is this cybercrime bill. I commend that initiative because the Computer Misuse Act and some of the acts I mentioned, they are limited in providing child online protection. So some of the main objectives, the criminalized offenses related to computer crime and cybercrime, to investigate some of the allegations, to use electronic evidence in prosecution, which is new. And this is very important, to create an environment that defines the obligations and restricts the liability of internet service providers. Because right now, there's absolutely none, there are no boundaries. So these people really cannot be held liable in any way. Continuing with the bill, it provides some key interpretations in terms of the technical terms, access provider, host provider, and so on. Just to skip down, criminalizes illegal access of computer data, data interference, acquisition of data, devices, forgery and fraud, and so on. All right, the sanctions are very, very high, $100,000 and 2 years imprisonment is the minimal sanction. And you can also get additional sanctions, fines, compensation, forfeiture of property where it's found that it was used to profit from the proceeds of the commission of offense. All right, and you can even get a restraint order if the accuser is trying to dispose of such property. All right, so the rest of the Caribbean, just moving quickly on. The Guyanese position, they have a cybercrime act, criminalizes child pornography, like Trinidad. Like Trinidad, adopts a strict liability approach regarding possession of child pornography. So once you have it, you're guilty. It doesn't matter that you didn't know it was planted on you. This is interesting. It makes it mandatory for a person or a service provider to report the act. So if you knew about it, or you were a service provider and you became aware and you did not report it, you can be charged and found guilty under the act. All right, the fines seem a bit the sanctions seem a bit hefty as well. As you can see, 10 million Guyanese dollars, 5 years imprisonment, and that's summary and on indictment, $15 million, 10 years imprisonment. Cybercrime Act, again, of Guyana, creates the offense of child luring. It's comparable to the Trinidad sexual grooming offense. But what's distinctive is it makes it mandatory. There's a mandatory reporting section to report it. Otherwise, you can be found liable. And those are the sanctions. Right. And finally, it seems very comprehensive. It makes an offense to use a computer system to coerce, harass, intimidate, threaten, or humiliate, or extort to benefit from another person, or any kind of publication or transmission which could cause emotional distress or detrimental to a person's health or emotional well-being, self-esteem. Okay, so Jamaica has a Cybercrime Act of 2015. It creates computer-related offenses, and there's the penalties, but I don't think they have something that's specifically coded for children online protection. I would imagine they have a bill on stream. And the Bahamian position, there's the Computer Misuse Act, criminalizes some uses of criminalized acts for unauthorized access on use of computers. Compensation, you can get damages if any damage is shown to be caused to the victim's computer program or data, and also it applies to any person regardless of nationality and whether they are within or outside the country. Sorry, how much? What's my time?
Actually, it's exceeded, so you have almost 1 minute left. We can
Okay,
say.
okay. Very quickly. What have the court said? So we don't have a lot of case law, so that's good because I don't have much time. But there is this case, the Janelle Burke case, 2016. It's the first time the court had to consider liability for publications via social media. It was a defamatory post, and the court said that such posts are comprehensible and they are, accessed by a worldwide audience, and that the court is of the view that the social media account holder must be held responsible for what's published, and it would be deemed to reflect their views. The court rejected, as the court said, the shaggy defense. The defendant said it wasn't me. She said it was her account, but she didn't post it. And there was a successful claim on libel. All right. Now, I know that's a civil claim, but we look at the reasoning of the courts in analyzing the social media platform protection of children. Recommendations. I think Children Act should criminalize online harassment and abuse. We should have a wide definition like the Domestic Violence Act. The Domestic Violence Act can only apply to a domestic violence situation and not all forms of child online protection. The Cybercrime Bill, we think it should be enacted. It provides 2 offenses: violation of a person's privacy by capturing and sharing pictures or videos of a person's private area without consent, or causing harm to a person via online communication. All right. I also recommend that these offenses, these proposed offenses, should have a special section for children with harsher penalties. And finally, I think there should be greater regional, among Caribbean as well as international cooperation for the prevention, detection, and prosecution. There should be bilateral and multilateral agreements, and promotion of safety at home, supervision, having parental control software, setting clear rules and guidelines, and finally, some preventative measures. We think that more social awareness by the creation of workshops should remind parents of the awareness of their obligation to protect children from cybercrimes. Okay, so that has been my presentation. Sorry that I'm a bit over. It was interesting. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, dear Nazira. It was quite comprehensive understanding from different legislations and case law. Maybe we'll go more practice-based for the question and answer session, who knows? Now there is question and answer session for the first part of the webinar. Please feel free to ask questions to our distinguished guests. We have 5 minutes if you would like to write down there. And actually, when the speakers were speaking, there were some questions. Maybe I can start with them, and also I can wait for the new questions. The first question goes with Mr. Ahed Atar, and actually it is more general question I had. Following the use of AI extensively in many parts of our lives nowadays, what do you think the readiness of the current legal regime, either global or regional or national, can protect human rights, in particular children's rights, how it works when it is not working. It is really a huge question. Unfortunately, human rights doctrine, unfortunately, doesn't reply it. But the student would like to focus on in relation with AI and the children's rights protection, global, regional, or national. Do you think that they can protect human rights? What is the current regime?
Yeah, so in relation to AI, the Online Safety Act does look at the AI and the use of the same. Section 55(4)(a) of the Online Safety Act details that any reference to content generated, uploaded, or shared by a user includes content generated, uploaded, or shared by means of software or an automated tool applied by the user. So as the Online Safety Act relates to user-to-user content, it also applies to content that is created using AI tools. And also this will be regulated, and illegal content needs to be removed, which is created by online tools, and also content that puts children at risk of cyberbullying, pornography, exposure to those kind of things. And the social media websites and companies also need to release terms of conditions and terms of use, which will apply to the users as well as people uploading and publishing content. And again, that extends to the use of AI tools. So in that respect, I do think the Online Safety Act does address the use of AI, and whether the codes of practice will, when they are implemented by the Ofcom, whether they will go into further detail as to what needs to be done by the social media companies in relation to AI. We'll need to wait and see, basically.
Thank you, Ahed. Another question actually comes from related to UK, and probably you told about the online safety bills. And the question is, online safety bills main aim to make the UK the safest place in the world to be online, as you mentioned. With this understanding, we would like to gain a national perspective from the UK's experience as the first country to address this issue through age-appropriate design code, which entered into full effect in 2021. Could you give a general view on the age-appropriate design code? It is more technical based, but still related with child rights and the technology. Thank you.
Yeah, so the Online Safety Act requires social media companies and websites to remove, to detect and then remove illegal and harmful content, and implement stricter age limits as well, so that only certain content will be available and accessible to adults, whereas it won't be accessible to children. And there should also be tools to filter out content that is inappropriate for children. So the children, it sort of to an extent puts onus on the children in line with their own need to develop autonomy, to also filter out content that is inappropriate for them. And again, like I said with the previous answer, we'll need to see whether the codes of practice also look to create more of a design and ensure that social media companies comply with the age-appropriate content, and facilitate their designs to protect children from illegal content or harmful content.
Thank you, Ahed. There is another question. Let me read. The question goes with Ms. Nazira Ali. Dear Nazira, as a judge in children's law, could you make a short assessment on whether a cybercrime against children is easier or more difficult compared to an offline crime against children to be enforced by law? Why is easier, or do you think that it's not easier? Why do you believe that? Thank you.
Okay, so I wouldn't say that it's easier to commit a cybercrime against a child rather than an offline crime. In Trinidad and Tobago, as I said, through the Trafficking in Persons Act, online access can be a conduit for offline abuse. What I would say is that it's more difficult to prosecute a cybercrime as opposed to an offline crime against a child in Trinidad right now, because the legislation that criminalizes the offense is limited. As I said, they claim the Domestic Violence Act, but that can be brought by a specific category of persons who stand in a domestic relationship with a child, current spouse, current former spouse, partner, relative, or household member. The legislation that exists for the protection of children in general right now does not provide remedies for cyber crimes against children. There was the case I referred to, the Janelle Burke case. I think that's really instructive on the gaps on the legal landscape. The judge in that case talked about, there's a quote I'd just like to say, it's important to know that we in Trinidad and Tobago are legislatively ill-equipped to deal with issues which arise for determination in matters such as this one, as our laws have not been adequately updated to deal with social media reality, which now exists. 19th century laws as they relate to publication simply can't regulate life in the 21st century. Also in that case, there was the issue of trying to prove the source and place of publication as well as the methodology to be adopted in proving authorship of the publication, and the requirement from the service providers and information technology professionals. So hence the need for the cybercrime bill to really become part of our legal landscape. Also, even though we have a bill on stream, it doesn't actually address the rules of evidence that may be required to successfully prosecute a cybercrime beyond a reasonable doubt. So even that bill might need review. So I would say in conclusion, it may be more difficult to prosecute a cybercrime offense against a child and more difficult to commit such a crime. But the case of Janelle Burke shows that steps are being taken by the court to provide an interpretation of this issue despite the lack of clear legislation, and we'll have to rely on the cases in common law until there's a clear sanction in the legal landscape to provide relief to the victims. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Nazira. And there is another question for you, actually. Could you please kindly share your views on how prosecution of offenses in online sexual exploitation can be made effective when offenses are committed in different jurisdictions? From Mohammed Shaib.
Okay, sorry. So how prosecution of
prosecution of offenses in online sexual exploitation can be made effective when offenses are committed in different jurisdictions?
Okay, so as I said, some of the acts that I mentioned, they have a territorial scope, so it didn't matter your nationality or where it occurred. So you have to look at the act of the jurisdiction which is affected to see if there's that territorial scope in the section. You have to see that it can be prosecuted at all. As I said, in Trinidad and Tobago, we are a bit handicapped by the not clear legislation. But in Guyana, for example, I think with their act, it's very comprehensive. So you might have some luck there. So it depends on the jurisdiction. So you have to look at the act to see if there's a territorial provision that applies to all nationalities and whether there's, it's cybercrime offenses criminalized. All right. But as I said, the rules of evidence as well you need to have that guidance as well in the law to make sure that the evidence from the service providers can be admitted, to help with the prosecution of the offense. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Nazira. And one more question to you. Probably you're a judge and people would like to learn from your perspective. Actually, following the use of AI, if there has been any legal case in your jurisdiction, Trinidad Tobago, which faces crime against children by using AI?
Well, at this time, there is no intelligence of AI within Trinidad and Tobago. And one of the possible reasons is that we haven't really felt the impact of AI, which appears to be a bit in its infancy stages locally. So it's not really been exploited locally, and as such, there are no legal cases which have addressed it. However, I would say that, there's been the recent advent of awareness regarding AI. There's been seminars and training, and there's been, in some of these seminars, there's been a call in all areas of society, the use of AI to combat the rising crime in the country. So I think it'll be only a matter of time that such awareness and tools can extend towards this area of child online protection. But at this point, no, we don't have a case, unfortunately.
Thank you, Nazira. There isn't any other questions, so okay. We can end the question and answer session for the first part of the webinar, and maybe I can some closing remarks, and then I'll transfer my role to Ms. Filiz Pial for the second session. Actually, today, World Children's Day, Rights Day, as all we know. The United Nations World Children's Day celebrates the rights of children worldwide to survive, to thrive, to be educated, to be free from violence and abuse, to participate, and to be heard. This day should cover to create a better internet for children and for the youth. And children have also particular needs and vulnerabilities on the internet. However, the internet also provides a place for opportunities to access knowledge, to communicate, to develop their skills, to improve their job perspectives and employability. And also children who lack access to the internet are excluded from resources, as we witness in the COVID period. With these in mind, and to address risks and harms of increasingly digitalized society, including for children, there are some efforts, particularly in the European frame, as especially Ms. Ait Atar and also Professor Harijanti made a speech on it, and also Ms. Nazira Ali gives some attention, regional attention on the some efforts about child rights and digitalization. And maybe I can add some from AI Act, for instance. AI Act emphasizing the protection of vulnerable groups interacting with AI, including children, by addressing their specific needs within the digital environment. And also, for instance, the other improvements in the EU frame, Digital Services Act, DSA, shows that the protection of minors is one of the cornerstones of the new rules, obliging companies to put interests of children at the front of their considerations. Apart from the European Commission has proposed a European Declaration on Digital Rights and Principles for the Digital Decade, which reflects these values that all speakers explain: children's protection and empowerment. As a result of all the statements of the speakers and me, and probably for the second session, as you can see, all we have to strive to deliver a digital world that protects children's rights and interests, prioritize their safety, well-being, and helps them reach their full potential. And thank you for joining the first session. And now the second session will start, and I'll transfer my role to Svetlana. Thank you all for coming, and I'm transfer for the moderation role to Ms. Filiz Pial. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Susan, for your contribution as a moderator. And we are going to start our second session of the event, and I will continue by introducing our moderator for the second session, Ms. Filiz Pial. So, Filiz Pial is an alumna of Queen Mary University of London LLM in International Banking and Finance Law in 2013. Currently, she is a partner at SRP Legal Law Firm in Istanbul, Turkey, specializing in technology law, data protection, and regulatory compliance. With extensive experience in advising both local and international clients, she leads projects in digital transformation, GDPR, and Turkish data protection law. Felice is a certified mediator of Istanbul Bar and International Privacy Professionals, CIPPE. So, from now on until the Q&A of the second session and later conclusion session of our event, Felice Pial, as a moderator, will lead the organization of this event. So, Felice, welcome, and from now, the floor is yours.
Hi, Svetlana. Thank you for the kind introduction. Can you all hear me now? Yes? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Selamat malam, if I spell it correctly, depending on wherever you are. In the second session, we have two esteemed speakers, Mr. Firdausi Firdaus and Ms. Aleyma Sharuna, each of whom will deliver their presentations separately in 15 minutes each. This will be followed by a Q&A session. Finally, I will hand over the floor to our host, Ms. Svetlana Chesnaya, who will officially close the event. Let me introduce our first speaker, Mr. Firdausi Firdaus. Mr. Firdausi is an alumnus of the Center for Commercial Law Studies at Queen Mary University of London, where he earned an LLM in Computer and Communications Law in 2013. Currently, he is a PhD candidate and researcher specializing in technology, media, and telecommunications law at the University of Barcelona. Before starting his PhD studies, Mr. Firdaus was a lecturer at the Faculty of Law, Universitas Padjadjaran in Indonesia, where he taught modules on cyber law, media law, telecommunications law, law and technology case studies, and e-commerce law. Mr. Firdaus' passion for technology law started during his undergraduate studies at UNPAD in 2006, where he focused on law and technology. He also has been actively involved in various ICT-related organizations, including MASTEL, IZOC, and the ICT IP Law Student Association at UNPAD. Furthermore, he served as the lead country Queen Mary Alumni Ambassador for Indonesia from 2014 to 2022 and has been the co-lead of the CCLS QML Indonesia chapter since 2020. Today, Mr. Firdaus will present on the role of multi-stakeholders in providing adequate child online protection in shaping better future generations in the digital era, and the fourth industrial revolution. Such a long title, and I'm sure he has a lot to say about this title. So I'm stopping here. I now leave the floor to Mr. Firdausi Firdaus for his presentation.
Thank you very much, Miss Moderator, Felice Pial, for very, very kind introduction from you. Thank you for having me, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May the blessing and the guidance from God be upon us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, selamat malam. I don't know what should I talk about, because we already have a lot of sophisticated speakers, since the keynote speech, Prof. Susi, and then Dr. Sezen, and then Ahed, and Mr. Ahed, and then Judge Nazira. So wait, let me, but actually there are always room for to be added for when we are talking about this topic. And then through my studies on technology, media, telecommunications law, I think a problem in this area of law is just never ending. And I think the worst is yet to come, right? Because the more advanced the technology, the more problematic usually the issue will be. We are already talking about human rights, about children's rights. We already about how the was being enforced to protect children's rights, including in digital environment. But actually, the responsibility of child online protection is actually just everybody. It applies to everybody. Everybody is responsible for it. Yeah. So maybe in more sophisticated language, we say multi-stakeholder responsibility. But why child online protection is necessary, beyond what is written in the law, and then when it's being implemented in the legal system and so on and so forth, is because in the concept of child online protection, as we all know that how internet is become integral part of human lives, basically, especially since the generation like Gen Z, Alpha, Beta onwards, internet will become the same environment like in our offline environment. So, and every human actually that who are born as a good human, but it is their environment that make them stay good or become evil. Because the fact that we see now that the world, even with the advance of technology, we still very much actually still barbaric. We still have a war. We still have crimes that actually many thousand years ago, it's already been conducted, right? So actually there is something wrong, or actually the problem will even getting longer because technology cannot all is like a double-edged sword. One thing can solve problem, but another thing actually can provide more problems. So, and the internet, especially in related with the child development, is really will shape them, because from the internet they will learn something, they will interact with someone, and you know what they say, when they interact with someone, you are what your friends are. So if you make friends from the internet with some people who bring more negative than positive, then you will become more negative as well, right? And then garbage in, garbage out. So in a bigger picture, you will see that people it's not only determine individual the internet, but will also determine as a country or even as the human civilization in the global context. So we might become, even with the advanced technology, become worse in terms of morality and so on and so forth. From Indonesia context, because every country have their different culture and sometimes ideology and so on and so forth, there are things that it's become a concern for us, for Indonesia, especially because we have a target for Indonesia 2045, where we also aim to finally escape from the developing country and become developed country, and definitely the young generation will have a pivotal role to do that, So, and we are, as we know, that Indonesia is the fourth populous country in the world. We are with almost 300 million people. The bonus demographic is like a double-edged sword. If this child online protection cannot be implemented in effective and consistent, this bonus demographic might become bring more calamitous problem to the development of Indonesia. So we might become the development maybe become step back. One of the issue for people when they connect with the internet, including children, because this internet addiction is actually can still also happen to us as an adult, not just children. But you can imagine if how disruptive to adult like us, then how disruptive it will be for the children. This will be explained and discussed more by the next speaker. So I will just mention the type of internet addiction, like cyber sex addiction, cyber relationship addiction, including social media addiction. Net compulsion is like online gambling, online shopping, and online auction addiction. Compulsive information seeking. This is where people think they do the right thing by seeking information in detailed ways, but actually they become irresponsible, then neglecting their priority in their life. And then of course computer or gaming addiction, because I'm pretty sure even for millennial generation like me, we during our kids time or childhood time, we do not play games like nowadays. Is much more fun than it used to. So in order for child online protection to be implemented, we need to at least categorize in 4C. This is according to Livingstone and Stoilova. Is we focus on the content, on the contact, on the conduct, and the contract. This is the risks that we categorize in a simple way, 4C. Yeah. The example of this contact, conduct, contract, and then contract, conduct, it's become a problem for me to say 4C. Yeah, is the example I will just mention: harassment, for example, yeah, bullying, yeah, pornography is for content, identity theft is for the contract, yeah, failures content and failures contact. This is also one of the key issue, yeah, because the misinformation that's still happening or even getting worse with the use of the AI technology nowadays, yeah. How people can be manipulated their mind, yeah. This is also one of the concern as Indonesia, and we look in Indonesia context, yeah. Ideological persuasion, manipulation, liberalization for those who are conservative practicing their religion, for example, radicalization and extremists, whether they are practicing the religion and so on and so forth. And this is one of the classic issue, actually, even before there is artificial intelligence, or even when people start to use the internet, but internet start to be used globally, because the nature of the internet is borderless. Yeah. So there is an element where some people said is culture imperialization. Yeah. So people, because how the internet's being developed by a certain culture, people are being forced to accept that culture, but actually it's not acceptable in other culture. Doesn't mean that we should be close-minded, but sometimes people do not have the wise to filter. So this child owner protection have the role to do this. Yeah. Okay, I will move. So who should actually responsible with the implementation of child owner protection? This is actually the key issue in this, and how we see the legal relation, who is responsible, how to be improved, and so on and so forth, is on this. First, of course, is policymakers, regulators, legislators, law enforcement, without doubt. And of course, the business entity. The business entity is like business providing digital platforms, tools, service, internet, mobile phone service, manufacturers of digital equipment, products, and by other or otherwise impact children, those who are responsible for the design of products and services. And of course, it starts with the more personal environment, like in education institution, like teachers, youth workers, youth organization, I think even including in the university, because some people who enter the undergrad, they still might be 16, 17, 18, which is actually considered still children, or even if they are already 19 and so on, is still adolescent. Adolescent is not quite adult yet, actually it's a transition from children to adult. Then, of course, parents, guardian, and caregivers is one of the key, because it's everything is start from the small scope in their family. They're all, and adolescent. So if you have a little sister or a brother or neighbors, it is your responsibility, because you have more you have closer generation than with the children. So maybe you can connect with them easier. I will skip with the policy because it's already been mentioned by the first speaker. And so this is what I'm continuing. Safety by design, yeah. Because the nature of the child, the internet is invented by the adults for the adults. So the protection that children for children is really the focus afterwards. Yes, it's actually become reactive, but this actually should be provided first before it's become a problem. So expose ex ante
You
approach
have
is
less
better.
than 5 minutes, Firdausi.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So safety by design, yeah. Mainly is about putting on the user safety and rights at the center. Yeah. Of what I mean here is, of course, on the safety and the rights of the children as the focus first. Yeah. Although this is like easier said than done. Yeah. And to do this, of course, we need independent government agency. Yeah. Where they will make the principles, and they will also need to have good relation because they need to supervise, for example, the business entity, or even sometimes need to revise whether the government regulation is already implemented successfully or not, or how it is being enforced as well. Yeah. From the legislation and regulation concept, digital service provider have a specific obligation to respect the rights and children and prioritize their great interests. This is where the problem is, because sometimes, the business entity, they focus more on business. So sometimes they're neglecting the ethical, they're neglecting the protection, their moral responsibility to actually to treat children is different than adult. They need to give more guidance to the children, so they cannot actually manipulate them because they cannot think as wise as us. We assume like that. Yeah. And of course, privacy is continuing to become a main issue, including for children. Yeah. And to do this, supervised safety by design, we can use risk assessment, yeah, and risk mitigation. Yeah. International commitments can also play a pivotal role, because the nature of the internet is borderless. Yeah, so it has domino effect. It cannot, one country or one region is very concerned, and then the other country is maybe so, and the rest is ignorance. It doesn't work like that for the internet, apparently. Yeah. And in order to do that, child online protection should be implemented by focusing also on prevention, yeah, protection, and prosecution. Prevention is by giving the guidance when people, for example, connecting with the internet. Yeah, this should be conducted by the business entity, for example, and then also the government and the independent agency should also make this how this thing works. Yeah. And then protection, of course, when it's already happened, there is already a victim, how to handle it. There is a channel that we can contact, the children can contact. Yeah. And prosecution, I think, how the law is being implemented. Yeah, how the law enforcement works. I will skip the ASEAN declaration, but ASEAN actually one of the region that has a bonus demographic. Yeah, not only Indonesia but other countries also very concerned with the development of the children, young generation when they connect to the internet. Yeah. And so I will skip to, yeah. So the importance of legislative and regulatory frameworks. Yeah. So in order for regulation, when regulation works, yeah, not only written on paper, we need to based on evidence-based legislation. So it means that we need to look at the data, whether this law actually works or not. We'll need to look at whether, as a result of the law, the child sexual exploitation, for example, is reducing or actually increasing. Yeah, for example. And then it's also require collaboration with others too, right? Because children and people views should be considered as a key element on the development of legislation related to child sexual exploitation abuse. Another thing is also, of course, civil society expertise, yeah, and then the needs of the regulation to be checked, reviewed, amended, yeah, monitored, especially because there's advanced technology and there is a trend of people how to use the technology, yeah, for example. So, and remember, treat children not the same. Like every human is different, are born differently. Children is like that too. Yeah. So I think I will skip to the last. Yeah. Wait, to the last. Okay, to the last. This one. So to measure the child online protection works or not, yeah, we need to look whether the law exists, whether there is reporting, yeah, who is the actors, yeah, and we will see whether the actors have done their job or not. And in order to do this, from education, for example, are there any digital literacy, yeah, that has been conducted by the multi-stakeholder, or there is a relation, for example, between government, business entity, and the civil society, and then the university or education as well, yeah. Yeah, so here it is. I think if I explain this more, it will take more time, but I think more or less the child online protection is required the responsibility from all of the people from the bottom up, from the up to downside too. So I think this is it from me for now. Maybe it can be continued with the discussion. Thank you. Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you for your insightful presentation, Mr. Fardus. As you emphasized, child online protection requires dynamic, evidence-based policies and collective efforts across multiple jurisdictions, including Indonesia, of course. Adopting laws, frameworks, and initiatives is critical to safeguarding children's rights in the digital age. There is a question or a comment for you. If you're ready, you can take it now. I can read it for you. This is from Mahindra Ganesha. The online link, or I prefer to say online fraud in Indonesia, how we should prevent this phenomenon to our kids in the future, not to mention sexual content as well. As we all know, we can't rely on the government, especially for the online fraud. Floor is yours, Firdaus.
Okay, thank you. This is a $1 million question, yeah, because it's always easier said than done. But yeah, regardless, I think the responsibility to prevent, yeah, for example, this online fraud, or to our, especially we focus on our kids, yeah, now it starts from the family. That's why I will share the PDF information, a link, yeah, PDF document after this, after I finish the presentation. And everybody who are interested, please download. Yeah, this is, I think, tools that people can use it, how to protect their family, including their children's, yeah, from becoming the victims. Yeah. So definitely the role of the parents or caregivers, yeah, because we are related with the kids, yeah, is to supervise them, yeah, supervise them, not maybe in like in our baby boomers era, or even previous year era before that, because even during my era as a millennial, I was raised more in equal treatment between parents and children. Yeah, where I'm talking from Indonesia or Asia perspective, probably it's different in the other culture, yeah, like in the Western, for example. But it's come from the family. Yeah, it's come from family. So digital literacy, so definitely from the family, from the parents, they need to have adequate digital literacy. Because when people connect with the internet nowadays, people need to start thinking that actually is more dangerous than when you connect with people on the offline environment, because you basically do not know really who they are. Because even when we are on the offline environment, we still cannot read people hard, read people minds, but at least we know how they look like, and people sometimes can be read by their gesture, right? But on internet, we do not have that, right? So we need everybody, regardless their generation, they need to know that. Yeah? We need to be more careful, more in online environment. So in order to do that, we need digital literacy. So people who already have someone, whether they're brother, little brother, sister, or children's, they need to learn about that first. Because yes, like the question say that we cannot rely on the government. Yes, especially when you are a big country with a big population like Indonesia. So what we do now is we need to equip ourselves, our family, with digital literacy, and we should start from ourselves as to first, right? You know, like the principle on the airplanes, the mother need to save their own self before they can help to save their children. So that's how we approach to answer this question in simple way. Yeah. So we know that how addiction works, yeah. This will be tackled by Runa. She's more expert about this, yeah, because in the end, it's not only about the written law, but it is also sometimes require more human approach. So I hope this kind of answer a bit your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And also in your presentation, you mentioned internet addiction, cultural imperialism, and war ideology. How can the principle of safety by design be applied to address these significant issues? What do you think?
That's one of the concern, yeah, from when we connect with the internet. I think even before Gen Z era, yeah, when millennials, we already start to use the internet. Yeah. So I think the child online protection, in order to work, yeah, it needs multi-stakeholders role, right? The government needs to have special agencies, yeah. And if we look, for example, Indonesia, we already have, yeah. If there is a law that can implement it, can be enforced, then it's good. Yeah. For example, in Asia, we already have in electronic information transaction law. Yeah. And then we also have data protection, for example. Yeah. The problem, I think, is more about how evidence-based regulation that I mentioned on the slide, where we check the effectivity and the implementation of the law. And in order to do this, yeah, it's required the relation. So there is a need of the special agencies, for example, which tackle this child online protection issue, to collaborate, yeah, to communicate, yeah, and knowing what it works and what didn't works, yeah, that is not working, yeah, whether it is the regulation that actually making it not work, yeah, or is it because of the business entity do not comply, or is it because the society, like the children and the parents, are just too ignorant, they just do not know about it? Because sometimes people, like law education actually should be general education, right? That we need to actually study until undergrad to know the law. When how the law implemented is, people are expected to know the laws, right? So this is the problem, is about how the implementation is consistent, whether by law, by regulation. And in order to do this, it needs the relation. It needs the relation that it should be supervised by the special agencies. So with the assumption that people who are in this position do not have a personal agenda. They do not have to be too strong side with the business entity, but do not strong side with the government, or even with other than if they have a strong side interest. It should be more on the children, yeah, focus on the children's safety and the children's right. That's my answer for this. I know this is easier said than done and probably needs to be more comprehensive than this, but I think this is in a simple way.
Thank you for your comprehensive responses. Now, let me introduce our second speaker, Ms. Aleyma Sharuna. Ms. Sharuna is a psyche-soma analyst and practitioner, a certified family constellation facilitator, and a certified TAT trainer. After graduating from the Academy of Art University in 2008, she began her career as a consumer strategic planner and a researcher. She worked at leading branding agencies until 2017, after which she joined BTPN Daya as head of research. During her time there, she played a pivotal role in incubating social programs for customers and advancing banking applications. In parallel with her corporate career, Ms. Sharuna pursued her passion for healing, trauma-informed learning, and psychoanalysis. In 2019, she transitioned to being a full-time therapist, focusing on helping others. She has since become an advocate for trauma healing, transgenerational issues, and mental health education, raising awareness among diverse audiences. Today, Ms. Sharuna will present on attachment and online behavior. I now leave the floor to Ms. Aleyma Sharuna for her presentation.
Thank you, Feliz. Hi, everyone. It has been 2 hours, so I will try to make my presentation concise so you will stay awake And at this time, I will present it from the point of view of developmental of a child. We've been talking about the external conditions and situation that we can provide or we can act on to help children from online predators and online harmful situations. However, we can also do something from their internal psyche. And it's something that should be done by the whole environment. You know, it takes a village to raise a child. So not only the parents, it's also the whole environment on how to build safe attachment to and relation to the children around us, not only for our children, but also the children around us. So the objective of this presentation is we want to explore how attachment theory and attachment style of a child can help prevent online exploitations. And this might sound different because all this time we thought that everything that we need to do is to prevent something from the external situation. However, there's something foundational about child's development that we can look and we can explore in order to make them actually feel and be safer, not only in online situations, but in all kind of relations. So first of all, we need to ask the questions, what is attachment style? And an attachment style reflects how a person interacts and behaves in relationships. It's significantly influenced by the bond they form or the child form as an infant with their primary caregiver and their adult in their surroundings. So a secure attachment forms the foundation for building healthy relationships, while insecure attachment may lead to difficulties in connecting with others and difficulties in building healthy relationships. So how does it actually connecting with their online behavior? I will let you know later, but let's explore 4 types of attachment style first. So we will understand which attachment style that actually we need to look further. So there are 4 attachment styles. One of them is secure attachment. So a secure attachment develops when caregivers provide a sense of presence. When the baby arrives, the baby see the primary caregiver. They can, or he or she can smell their caregiver. It's predictable. So the caregivers provide presence, security, and meet the child's physical and emotional needs appropriately. This creates a foundation for healthy relationship in the future for the child. But there's another 3 attachment style. The first one is the anxious attachment. An anxious attachment results from inconsistent caregiving. Sometimes the caregiver is there, sometimes is not. Sometimes there's a presence, but sometimes there's no presence. So the child, when they grow up, left wondering, can I rely on my caregiver? Do I really belong to my caregiver? And so this often leads to an adult when they grow up who fears on rejection. And they usually seek reassurance in relationship. So there are unfulfilled needs from this child since childhood to adulthood. And one of the needs is reassurance that they're actually wanted, needed, and they can rely on this person. The third one is the avoidant attachment. So different with the anxious, the avoidant attachment happen when caregivers are emotionally unavailable or rejecting. So avoidant attachment may form because the caregivers cannot open up to the child emotionally, or when the child asks to any kind of emotional connection to the caregivers, they were being rejected or refused. Or when the child tried to express their emotion, they're being rejected or refused. So these individuals, the child who becomes adults, often struggle with emotional closeness. and they're relying on self-defense mechanism, and they like to distance themselves emotionally. So this child, these individuals, when they were a child, automatically struggles to meet their own emotional needs because no one actually co-regulate this child on how to express their emotions. No one actually welcome their emotional needs, and they need to struggle to meet their own sense of security, and they need to learn how to self-soothe. So this actually leads discomfort with forming emotional closeness with others. But deep inside, they actually need one. So this is the kind of person when we grow up, we see that they don't want to show their vulnerability, but inside they actually need to be taken care of. And the fourth one is the disorganized attachment. And this is basically a combination of avoidant as well as the anxious. So disorganized attachment stems from traumatic experience where the caregiver is both a source of fear and also protection. So the child feels confused because sometimes they struggles with the need of emotional closeness, but they are also afraid with the caregiver because sometimes they need to expect harmful things happen to them. So what makes a child growing up feeling that sometimes they need this emotional closeness, when they get it, they would like to push it away. But inside, they actually need this reassurance that they're actually needed and protected. So knowing this for attachment style, what is their role in attachment, role of attachment in vulnerability? Okay, so in insecure attachment style, which is anxious, avoidant, as well as disorganized attachment, they can make children more vulnerable to online predators because these individuals may turn to online interactions. These children likely turn to online interaction to fulfill their unmet needs. So sometimes it's their coping mechanism of not having the needs they have in growing up or in their environment. So they go to online to fulfill their unmet needs, and it's of course exposing them to risk. So understanding a child's attachment style is very crucial for reducing vulnerabilities. And we also see when these types of child turn to online interaction to fulfill their unmet needs, it's making them more susceptible to predators who exploit these desires for attention and connections and the feeling of being wanted. So it's important for us to understand what kind of attachment style that we already built with our child, and how we make, if it's not a secure one, how we build a secure attachment with our child so they won't try to find or fulfill the needs outside, but inside of the family. So the question is how the online predators exploit attachment needs. Online predators exploit unmet attachment needs by presenting themselves as supportive figures. And it's basically like a bait for the child because that's what they need. They offer consistent emotional support and validation at first as the persona. You know, I think it is mentioned earlier either by Nazira or by Ahmed. They come as someone who is consistent, alluring, and then they're mimicking a trusted relationship. So it actually builds dependency towards the child. So the dependency increases the child's vulnerability to exploitation. So this online predator sometimes acting like a caring, reliable figure. So it will bring a close attachment. They see it like a mentor or someone, a projected family member, and it builds their independency. And once they actually got the bait, this manipulative approach makes them even more confident to victimize the victim. So the question is, how do I know that my children or even ourselves have a healthy or unhealthy attachment in online interaction? So there are many signs of healthy interactions, but for the unhealthy interactions, the first one is It's including expressive messaging, sometimes that there's no borderline in terms of, I'm sorry, excessive messaging. There's no borderline, there's no borders between time and the quantity. So it becomes on and on and on. And it seems like a fire gun to a child or to the victim, like it's nonstop. So the victim will feel very much cornered with even just seems like a quote unquote just a message, but it's not just message. It's actually way more like that, more than that. And then there's emotional manipulation, usually a gaslighting or guilt tripping. It makes the victim feel guilty if they don't pay attention to the abuser. They demanding secrecy, and they use this isolation technique. For example, the only one who understands you is me, and no one understands you. So there's no way you need to have any interaction with your family members or your close friends, because they don't understand you like I do. Or for example, that the only one who trusts you is me, and if you say some things towards other, no one will trust you. So they have these isolation tactics. That is the red flags. And usually they also pressure us to share personal informations. And they don't have any good reaction towards boundaries. Like, for example, we cannot chat right now, and usually there's a negative reaction towards any boundaries that we put. So we need to educate this to our children, or if our surrounding is also children, we need to give this kind of education. There is a green flags and also red flags for healthy interactions. So the question
You have
is
less than 5 minutes.
yes, soon. The question is how to build strategies to strengthen secure attachment in youth. So I only will put 3 points. What if our children already growing up, they're not baby anymore, and we just know this information, and we would like to start building secure attachment. The first one is active listening. We can ask our children, basically one of the children's biggest needs is actually emotional connection. They wanted to feel heard, they want to feel bonded and connected. So one of the ways is to have active listening. In this case, we here to listen, not here to answer. So we basically just listen to whatever they say, and we try to connect with them emotionally. We don't have to say anything to, say something back, but we make them sure that every word that they tell us, we listen carefully. And then second one, let's talk about open communication about online experiences. Of course, we have experiences, but sometimes we thought it's a secret. So with healthy boundaries, we tell them, we build a communication about what kind of online activities do they have. And when they tell us, with, again, going back to the first point, which is active listening, without judgment, without any point of views or perceptions. We just try to understand as they are. So basically, to empathize. And the third one, teaching emotional regulation. And this is very important. We need to teach our children on how to understand their emotions, understand what are the needs that they need right now. Is it met? Is it unmet? And how to regulate their emotions if it's being unmet, and how to actually build a healthy relationship with themselves before they build relationship with others. So with these 3 points, parents can basically starting to build secure foundations and secure relationship and attachment to their child. And of course, I will not tell it one by one, but we need to have attachment-based digital literacy skills. We need to teach our children what is their manipulation tactics for the online abuser. And we need to teach our children how to identify false intimacy. And if our children's already have great relationship with us, and we have this emotional connection and intimacy, automatically, unconsciously, they will able to see the difference. So we need to also teach them, and not only teach them, but also do it together with them. The real emotional connection, how to set emotional boundaries and understand signs of exploitation, what to do, what not to do, what to say and what not to say. And of course, the fifth one, last but not least, and also important, how to build self-validation skills. So how we help youth rely on their own support networks and self-worth rather than seeking validation and sense of self-worth from the external. We need to plan that to our children. So basically, as closing, one of the way to prevent online abuse and online harm, not only education and not only the law, but we need to understand that we need to build healthy self-worth, relation and attachment of our children towards themselves first. So when they actually already fulfilled, they will not look for the external to fulfill it for them. And teaching youth about online boundaries and safety is crucial for empowering them to make informed choices, avoid exploitation, and build balanced, respectful relationship online. So thank you very much. And I hope I'm not talking too long. Thank you.
Thank you for your insightful and timely presentation. By understanding attachment styles and fostering digital literacy, let's say, caregivers, families, educators can empower children to navigate online spaces safely. I think teaching them to recognize unhealthy interactions, set boundaries and build trusted support networks is vital in reducing vulnerabilities to exploitation and promoting overall well-being. Now I will pass on to the questions for you, Aleyna Sharuna. Since Gen Z and younger generations are digital natives, how does their early and frequent internet use impact their mental health and social skills? For example, does it affect their ability to interact face-to-face, show empathy, and demonstrate good manners?
Absolutely. Since early years, this Gen Z already interact with digital, and there are key considerations that we need to include on how it actually impacts them. The first one is of course, there's a reduced person-to-person interaction, because then, when I was a kid, there's no other way to play with others other than going to your neighbors or going to your friends' friends. And it has changed so much to the point that if my son's friend almost every day going to my house, the parents would think, oh, it's a shame, or in Indonesia, malu. I feel embarrassed if you keep going to my son's house, because there's no more culture that we don't have any other choice to play other than going other people's house. Do you see what, do you know what I mean? Because we're so used to with digital and televisions and YouTube and other things, when you go to other people's house, it becomes something that big. It's not something ordinary like when I was a child. Maybe in Ibu Susi's childhood, it's even not only to the neighbor, yeah, maybe it's to other streets, across the streets and gang or somewhere even further away. So of course, there's a reduced person-in-person interaction, and it actually, of course, impacting how they empathize towards other. Because when you go to your neighbor's friend and you have this kind of relationship and you meet someone's every day, you start to have this learning and knowledge about how to empathize with others. You meet a lot of various of people, but when it become reduced and it is replaced with a game like Roblox, there's a lot of scene that's actually quite harmful, to be honest, but then the child see it like regular things, of course it will reduce their empathy. And this is what we need to see even in a bigger picture, because it will shape how they actually see human relations when they're growing up. And of course, there's a mental health strain because then they will compare from one social media to another. And without doubt, today we have attention and focus issues on children's even more compared to 20 years ago. So to address this impact, we can have several solutions. The first one, how families and school actually not only teach digital etiquette, but how we emphasize on offline bonding, how we actually prioritize offline need and bonding compared to online, how we incorporate empathy building exercise, like role playing, community service, or any sports that use your emotional intelligence and emotional depth. So I hope it answered the questions.
Thank you very much. And we have another question. Based on your knowledge and experience, what do you see as the key factors, both internal and external, that make children vulnerable to cybercrimes? Actually, you did discuss this a little bit, but maybe you can elaborate on that. How can these risks be mitigated by families, individuals, and educational institutions? You also provided some examples, but I just want to ask the question in any way. And how can we address internet addiction issues such as gambling, pornography, excessive gaming, and social media overuse? Like specifically those, maybe.
Specifically those, okay. So I may answer the latest question first.
Yeah.
When we talk about addiction, because I have several clients who actually also addicted. Addiction is basically one of the coping mechanism of some traumatic experience that keep needed by those people. For example, when it comes to alcohol, it is too much pain to feel their emotions and to face all this uncomfortable feeling because of the traumatic or several traumatic experience that they had before. So they actually like to numb it through the alcohol. But also it also happens to the gambling. So when it comes to addiction, it is more than just whether there's regulations or not, but we need to understand that as human, they try to bury something deeper than that. And so we need to see it something not only as an online issue or is it alcohol issue, but it's more like human issue and traumatic issues. And we need to see it as the whole integrated solutions. So this addiction actually also very closely tied to the attachment styles and their mental health and developmental psychology when they're actually growing up. For example, insecure attachment can lead children to seek validation or escape through risky online activities, and we have covered this before. So such as excessive gaming, social media, interacting with strangers, and poor emotional regulation, as well as low self-esteem, further can increase their reliance on the internet for comfort and for distraction. For some people, addiction is also to find soothing experience, to numb themselves or to distract themselves from these very much uncomfortable feelings and emotion they actually having. So for the external factors, for example, inadequate parental supervision, exposure to unsafe online spaces, it also can elevate the risk. So what we can provide is, as a foundation of healthier behavior, is we still need to teach our children since beginning emotional regulation, promoting digital literacy, an ability to get in touch with themselves, how they feel, and how to process whatever feelings they have, be it is happy or it's uncomfortable emotions like anger, fear, or sadness. So we actually already teach them since the beginning how to process and face challenges rather than trying to be distracted from those problems. And most of addiction is because we try to cope it, we cannot face it, we then get numb ourselves or distracted. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And to all of our speakers and participants also for contributing to today's discussion. I hope the discussions and I think the discussions and ideas shared today highlight the importance of addressing online risks collaboratively and proactively, whether through emotional connection, technological innovation, regulatory measures, education, and definitely by awareness. I hope the session has inspired the audience to think more deeply about these issues and to take actionable steps in our respective fields and our private lives as well. Now I leave the floor to the host, Ms. Svetlana Chesnayana, for her closing remarks. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Felice, for your contribution as moderator. And as time flash goes by, we are already at the end of the whole event. On behalf of the joint organizer between Center of Commercial Law Studies, Queen Mary University of London, Caribbean and Indonesia chapters, I would like to say again, thank you very much for everybody's participation and contribution, for the speakers, moderators, and of course the audience during this event. Today, we learned valuable things about how crucial is the impact of the internet and child online protection on children's development and shaping future generations of humanity. Indeed, great technology comes with a great responsibility and morality after all. And last but not least, please don't forget to subscribe QMUL School of Law YouTube channel. You can see the links in the chat, and it's www.youtube.com/QMUL School of Law. And follow the CCLS Indonesia chapter on Instagram at www.instagram.com/CCLS_chapter_Indonesia. So thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay happy. Cheers.